So a famous story tells that when Moshe Rabbeinu was being given the Torah, Hashem says to Moshe, "Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo." Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. So Moshe turns to Hashem and says, "Do you mean to say that we shouldn't eat meat and milk together?" So Hashem says, "No, for a second time. Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo. Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk." So Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Do you mean to say that we should have separate dishes between milchiks and fleishiks, between any meat and milk that we eat?" She said for a third time, "Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo." Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Do you mean we should wait for 6 hours after eating meat before we eat milk?" Hashem says, "Fine, Moshe, have it your way." So that joke touches upon the fact that two things. One, the fact that Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo is mentioned 3 times in the Torah, but also that usually Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo, or the mitzvah from which we derive all of the separation between milchik and fleishik, is usually considered to be what we call a chok, which is usually explained as a mitzvah that we cannot rationally understand. So I've heard many years ago a beautiful explanation. The Torah says that isn't necessarily the case. That Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo as an origin to all the laws of separating meat and milk actually can be understood. And Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, Rav Avram Yitzchak Cohen Cook's son, said the following beautiful idea. He says, the mitzvah, its original mitzvah, not to cook a kid in its mother's milk. If you think about it for a second, what kind of human being would do such a horrible thing? You're taking a kid who was just born, whose sustenance comes from the milk of his mother, and instead of using the milk for his sustenance, you're using the milk to cook the kid in order to consume and eat him. It's taking something which is supposed to be an act of mercy, something that is supposed to give the kid life, and using it to kill him in order to turn him into food. So what it is it's a tremendous blurring of the line between good and bad, between being merciful and being cruel. Says Rav Tzvi Yehuda, the same thing is true to all of mixing of meat and milk. Because where do you get meat from? We get it from an act of cruelty, by killing an animal. And where do you get milk from? Milk, cheese. You get it from milking a cow, which at the end of the day is an act of mercy. Because without milking the cow, if the cow is not milked, eventually it causes pain. So if one were to mix meat and milk, there's a blurring of the line as if to say, oh, they're both acts of taking something from an animal, and therefore there's no difference. But it is a world of difference. It's a world apart from each other. One is an act of mercy, milk. One is an act of cruelty, meat. So Rav Tzvi Cook comes and says that all of the halachot that were derived from, or that were learned from Lo tevashel gdi b'chalav imo, have kept the core, the essence of what the mitzvah is about, of making sure of separating between morality and immorality, or cruelty and kindness. Even though it's permitted cruelty, it's still an act of cruelty and should not be blurred as if it has no moral meaning. Now there's another very interesting idea that's hidden here, because a mitzvah that in the past was considered to be a chok, something that we had difficulty to understand with our own logic, in our generation, where there's a higher awareness to animal rights and sensitivity towards the feelings and emotions in animals, since there is a raised sensitivity, we can now understand that within the Torah itself already there is this sensitivity towards animals, even when it is permitted to consume animals. Still, always to understand that we need to keep a distinction and remember that even though it might be permitted, there is a certain negativity connected to it, and not to blur the lines between morality and immorality. Shabbat Shalom.